Thank you so much, President Shelton. There are no words to say other than thank you. As I say to everybody, it is an honor and a privilege to have the job that I have. I have the best job in the labor movement, and I'm so proud to serve in this position. Let me begin. Thank you, President Shelton, Secretary Treasurer Woods, members of the General Executive Board, delegates, guests, brothers and sisters. It is an honor to present to the 41st Constitutional Convention of the BCTGM the legislative and political report for the period 2018 through 2021. Looking back at the political and legislative world over the past 4 years, we are reminded of the song by the country artist Tracy Lawrence titled, "You Find Out Who Your Friends Are." Over the last 4 years, as the BCTGM and our members face some of the toughest challenges in our proud history, we found out who our friends are in the political world. We found out who would be there for us when we needed them the most, and who turned their backs on us and went the other way. 4 years ago, we left this convention determined to keep the BCTGM front and center in the fight for federal legislation that protects and preserves the hard-earned pension benefits of our retirees and our active members looking forward to their retirement. The BCTGM had been working hard on this legislation for many years because pension benefits mean everything to BCTGM families. The officers of our union made winning this fight a top priority, devoting whatever resources were necessary and digging in for however long it would take to get this legislation through Congress and enacted into law. BCTGM members and retirees across this country and across this union made their voices heard loud and clear. Our people made thousands of calls and sent thousands of emails to senators and representatives with a simple but powerful message: save our pensions. We earned them, we paid for them, we deserve them. This relentless effort by the BCTGM was recognized at the highest levels of government and throughout the labor movement. All of Washington knew that the BCTGM was the go-to union when strong, effective action was needed to move the legislation forward. The many years of hard work finally paid off on March 11th, 2021, when President Biden signed into law the American Rescue Plan Act, which included the best possible plan to guarantee that our pension funds would be solvent for decades to come, and the pension benefits of millions of American workers, including current and future BCTGM retirees, will be paid in full. The BCTGM has a lot to be proud of in this historic legislative victory. This victory would not have been possible without your dedication and the hard work done by those you represent, and we thank you so much for that. This victory would not have been possible without the strong and principled leadership of our executive officers, from President Hurt to President Durkee to President Shelton. This victory would not have been possible without President Biden and the Democratic leaders in Congress who never gave up, who pushed forward until they had the votes to pass this life-saving legislation. This victory would not have been possible without the Democratic Senate victories in Georgia in January 2021, which gave Democrats control of the Senate. President Shelton had the BCTGM fully engaged in these elections. Southern Region Vice President Zach Townsend, Local 42 Principal Officer David Cooper, Local 25 Principal Officer Jeff Webb, and International Representative Jared Cummings led a great effort by BCTGM members in Georgia to help send Democrats Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff to the United States Senate. Brothers and sisters, not one Republican in Congress voted for the American Rescue Plan to save our pensions. In fact, Republicans tried to strip out the pension provision in the American Rescue Plan every chance they had during the legislative process. They trashed the pension legislation, calling it, quote, a bailout, as if our retirees were like the big banks and insurance companies. They thought it wasn't tough enough on pensions and pension funds. They wanted retirees to have to take drastic cuts in their pension benefits, with some Republican senators calling for at least a 40% cut in benefits. This legislation was no bailout. These benefits were earned and paid for over a lifetime of hard, physically demanding work. It is so hard to understand how any politician would want to cut the pensions of retirees knowing that these pensions are their lifeline. For 4 years, the labor movement urged President Trump to work with us to help fix the pension problem, show some leadership, call on Republicans in Congress to support a fair solution to protect workers' pensions. He didn't lift a finger to help. When President Biden took office, he said that he wanted the pension benefits, the pension problem fixed, and no cuts in pension benefits for current or future retirees, and long-term security for pension funds. And that is exactly what we got. And by saving the multi-employer plans, including the B and C fund, all other pension plans were protected. Kellogg's, General Mills, Philip Morris, Frito-Lay, ADM, Hershey. Because if the multi-employer plans go down, single-employer plans would absolutely be next. Brothers and sisters, when it came to saving our members' pensions, we found out who in the political world were our friends and who turned their backs on us, and we will never forget. Yesterday, President Shelton spoke about how the entire labor movement took notice of our great strike victories last year and how those victories have put the BCTGM in a new leadership position within the American labor movement. You heard it from AFL-CIO President Liz Shuler. You heard it from AFT, American Federation of Teachers, President Randy Weingarten, one of the largest unions in America. They look to President Shelton and the BCTGM for leadership. They look to President Shelton and the BCTGM for support. They look to President Shelton and the BCTGM for inspiration. Brothers and sisters, that's powerful. And here is who else took notice of the BCTGM victories. Politicians from the President of the United States to U.S. senators and representatives, to governors, to state legislators, to mayors. After the victory at Frito-Lay, and moving on to Nabisco and Kellogg's and John Deere, elected officials were reaching out to President Shelton, wanting to know what they could do to help. Building broad, serious political support was an important part of the union strike strategy. We wanted to put some pressure on these companies from the political world, and we did. Let's look at some of that support. President Biden issued an official statement from the White House in support of our Kellogg's strike. He strongly criticized Kellogg's for bringing in scabs. This was the first time in history that a sitting president weighed in on the side of striking workers, and it came at a crucial time in that strike. Also during the Kellogg strike, Labor Secretary Marty Walsh called President Shelton and asked what he could do to help. President Shelton asked him to come to a picket line and walk with our striking members. President Shelton made this ask knowing that no sitting labor secretary had ever walked a picket line with striking workers. This was a bold move by President Shelton, and it paid off. Secretary Walsh didn't hesitate. He said, "I'll do it." He came to the strike line in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and he walked shoulder to shoulder with our members. And he wasn't there just for a couple of pictures and leave. He walked and talked and listened to our members for hours. The first time in history that a sitting labor secretary walked the picket line with striking workers. It's a heck of a lot to say. The president did something for the first time in history, and a labor secretary did something for the first time in history, and that says a lot about this great union. Now, Marty Walsh is a proud union man, former leader of the Laborers Union and the Boston Building Trades. But he would not have come to Lancaster if he didn't have the approval from his boss, President Biden. During the Nabisco, Kellogg's, and John Denaire strikes, solid pro-labor senators such as Sherrod Brown of Ohio and Bernie Sanders of Vermont called President Shelton and asked what they could do to help. This led to letters signed by senators from across the country to the CEOs of these companies, expressing strong support for the strikers and calling on the companies to negotiate in good faith with the union for fair contracts. Bernie Sanders went to Battle Creek to rally with our striking members and their families. Congresswoman Linda Sanchez, who represents the district in the Los Angeles area where the John Denaire plant is located, walked the picket line with our John Denaire brothers and sisters, and got 24 other U.S. House members from all over the country to sign a strong letter to the Rich Products CEO in support of the striking workers. Each one of these letters made it crystal clear that these elected officials were on the side of the BCTGM and striking workers. These senators and representatives then unleashed their powerful social media operations in support of BCTGM strikers. Byron Brown, the mayor of Buffalo, New York, where Rich Products is headquartered, asked how he could help resolve the strike. He knew labor was planning a massive rally outside the Rich's headquarters. We were coming right to the front door of this company. We arranged a Zoom call for Secretary Treasurer Woods and the mayor. Brother Woods laid out the issues in the strike. The mayor got it, understood it, and expressed his full support for the union and the strikers. He said he would meet with the company and urge them to get back to the table. This call was on a Thursday. By Saturday, a top Rich's executive was calling President Shelton, asking to meet to get the strike settled. Brothers and sisters, this level of political support for striking workers is unheard of. The companies didn't see it coming. They didn't like it. They said publicly that it didn't affect them. But those in this room who are at the bargaining table with these companies, they can tell you that this political support did make a big difference. But you don't have to take our word for it. Listen to what the chief negotiator for Kellogg's, Ken Hurley, he was the lead negotiator during the strike, had to say at a conference earlier this year with his HR and human resources cronies. This is Ken Hurley speaking.
The federal and state government officials got heavily engaged. As was mentioned earlier, we got a visit by the U.S. Labor Secretary Martin Walsh at the Lancaster picket line. It was the first visit ever by a U.S. Labor Secretary to an active picket line. And then on December 10th, after we issued our intent to hire permanent replacements, Joe Biden came out with a statement saying that he's against permanent replacements and, basically an anti-Kellogg public release.
This is an extraordinary admission of this union's success. It's so good, it's worth another listen.
The federal and state government officials got heavily engaged. As was mentioned earlier, we got a visit by the U.S. Labor Secretary Martin Walsh at the Lancaster picket line. It was the first visit ever by a U.S. Labor Secretary to an active picket line. And then on December 10th, after we issued our intent to hire permanent replacements, Joe Biden came out with a statement saying that he's against permanent replacements and, basically an anti-Kellogg public release.
That's real political support, brothers and sisters. And by the way, Ken Hurley is no longer with Kellogg's. Now, politicians usually avoid getting involved in labor disputes. It's too messy for them. The fact that so many politicians got involved in such a high-profile public way shows how much respect this union has earned at every level of government. Now, politicians do like to be associated with winners, and the BCTGM was winning big time last year. Unfortunately, almost all of this political support came from Democrats. No Republican senators or representatives were calling President Shelton asking how they could help resolve our strikes. Every signature on those letters, to Mondelez, to Kellogg's, to Rich's, was from Democrats. Now, there were 2 Democratic senators who were AWOL during the strikes when we really needed them. Senators Kane and Warner of Virginia. Neither one of them could find their way to the Nabisco strike line in Richmond, Virginia. Couldn't even bring a pizza. And one of them, Tim Kaine, used to be the mayor of Richmond. He sure as hell knew his way to the Nabisco bakery. Neither one of them signed on to the Senate letter to the Mondelez CEO. Over 400 Virginian men and women on the streets fighting for a fair contract, fighting for their lives. And these 2 senators were AWOL. Neither one of these senators will ever get BCTGM support again. Brothers and sisters, when it comes to standing up for BCTGM strikers and their families, we found out who in the political world were our friends and who turned their backs on us, and we will never forget. During the 2020 presidential campaign, Joe Biden said he would be the most pro-union president in history, and he has backed up his words with actions. He was there for us in our fight to save our pensions. He was there for us when our members were on strike. He appointed a proud, card-carrying union member as labor secretary. In his first speech to Congress, President Biden called on Congress to pass the PRO Act to, quote, so we can support the right to organize. And he's been fighting for it ever since. He established the White House Task Force on Worker Organizing and Empowerment, an office in the White House dedicated to helping unions organize more members. That's never been done before. In his first hours on the job, Joe Biden fired the anti-union general counsel at the Labor Board, and he replaced him with a top lawyer from a union, the Communications Workers of America, the CWA. He established the Made in America program to make sure that more of what the government buys is made in America, and that includes hundreds of billions of dollars worth of food and other products made by BCTGM members. In speech after speech, President Biden says loudly and proudly, Wall Street didn't build this country, the middle class built this country, and unions built the middle class. Brothers and sisters, Joe Biden has been loyal to labor, and labor needs to be loyal to Joe Biden. Brothers and sisters, it's not about political party. It's about which politicians are with us when we need them the most and which ones are not. If politicians can't be there for us when our members are out on the streets on strike, we can't support them. If politicians can't be there for us when we need them to help save our members' pensions, we can't support them. If politicians can't be there for us to support legislation that levels the playing field in organizing, we can't support them. Not one Republican in the United States Senate will sign on to support the PRO Act, and we have a few Democrats who won't sign on either. And without this support, we cannot get this legislation to President Biden's desk for his signature. If politicians can't be there for us to support legislation to stop employers from cutting off workers' health insurance during a strike or a lockout, we can't support them. Right now, there is legislation in Congress that would do just that. The Striking Workers Health Care Protection Act and the Locked Out Workers Health Care Protection Act. Think about what it would have meant if this legislation were already the law last year during our strikes. Think about what it would mean to have this as the law of the land the next time we're on strike or get locked out. So far, all of this support for this game-changing legislation is coming from Democrats. We urge you to call on your representatives and senators, Democrat and Republican, to urge them to support these two bills. Next year, our Canadian brothers and sisters will definitely find out who their true political friends are when federal legislation will be introduced outlawing the use of scabs during a strike or a lockout. These are all core, gut BCTGM issues. As Tracy Lawrence says in his song, "This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where the truth don't lie, brothers and sisters. This is the truth. This is the record, and these are the facts that we must take to our members as we head into the November elections." We need to support those politicians who were there for us when we needed them the most. And we need to oppose those politicians who sat on the sidelines or worked against us. As local union leaders, you are the closest to the membership. Your members trust you and look to you for leadership on legislative and political matters. You can make a difference. We can all make a difference in determining who controls Congress. Will it be politicians who stand with us no matter how tough it gets? Or will it be politicians who want to put the labor movement out of business? The BCTGM Constitution tells us that it is our responsibility as leaders of this great union to fight against anti-union and anti-social legislation in order to protect and preserve our members' rights and standard of living. Brothers and sisters, under the strong and decisive leadership of President Shelton and Secretary Treasurer Woods, the BCTGM will give it everything we have to get the job done in November, to elect true friends of the BCTGM and defeat those who would do harm to this union and our members. Because this is our union. This is our future. This is our fight, and the BCTGM knows how to win. Thank you, President Shelton. That will conclude my report.
This is what you really didn't know. This is where the truth don't lie. You'll find out who your friends are. Somebody's gonna drop everything, run out and crank up their car. Hit the gas, get there fast, and stop to think what's ahead of me. Or it's way too far. They just show on up with their big old heart. You'll find out.
I tell you, you can't beat Harry for giving a speech and getting up here and letting us know how it is. And Harry and I talked about it, and those two senators in Virginia will never get a damn penny from us again. Harry didn't bring this up, but I want to bring this up. He's got his family here, and I want to introduce them since he didn't do it. Laura, would you please stand? Thank you, Laura. Continue standing. Sam and Ilana. His sister-in-law, Pam. There's Pam. Ed, that's your friend, Ed?
My friend Ed Good.
Ed, his good friend Ed, who come in for the speech. Stand up. Thank you.
And Shelby, Sam's girlfriend, Shelby.
Shelby. And Sam's beautiful girlfriend, Shelby.
Thank you. Thank you so much.